Welcome to the Coffee Journeys show, hosted by me, Piotr Zagorowski, author of the Coffee Journeys blog. In this show, I'll be sharing my journey from being a technical person to a leader and discussing topics such as leadership, technology, and intentional living. I'll be sharing my unique perspective and insights and offering guidance on how to develop the skills and mindset needed to succeed in today's world. Whether you're an aspiring leader, a technology enthusiast, or simply looking to learn more about the world around you, this podcast is for you. So, join me for the engaging and thought-provoking conversations on leadership, technology, and intentional living on the Coffee Journeys show. I was thinking, how should I start my new podcast and what should be me in my first episode? I would like to introduce myself and tell you a bit about me. On the other hand, however, this podcast, it's not going to be about me. So this is the plan for today. Because it's not my first podcast I have ever done, I'm going to use some of my materials I recorded with my fellow podcaster Piotr Zagorowski for the podcast called The Elevators Show. You're going to hear 3 stories and some lessons I learned along. First story is going to be about how did I get my first IT job, and lesson on how rejection can give you an extra motivation. Next story is how important it is to be helpful for others, treating users like people who just need your help, and lesson on how important it is going beyond scope of your job. And the final story is how did I get to leadership, and final lesson is how important it is to be self-aware and be able to lead yourself before you lead others. Without further ado, please tune in to the conversation where Pete asked me about how did I start career in IT. When I get interested in computers and Linux and everything, I needed to get a real job because I had some small jobs here and there to just earn money for computers and parts and everything.
It's a bad habit.
So I decided to work. Well, not decided really. It was I was looking for a job and the job was available, but it was actually interesting. So I started working for cable TV. Originally as just cable kind of installator. But then I was kind of back office clerk,
right?
Doing some actually designing network. Back in the day when you start doing like a cable TV, etc., you have something like headend, and then you go to some district, like in Krakow, where I used to live. You just go there and measure everything and need to design network with just like huge cables that are distributing signal.
Right.
It's basically broadcast, right? So you just distribute it from headend via fibers, then via big cables and to a block of flats. So that was my first job, but after measuring everything, just to make sure that meters are measured, etc., we actually digitize everything using AutoCAD with huge tablet. It was A0 for people who know maps and everything. It was super big and super cool. So I worked with computers, and then after some time, I get better and better with Linux, and I started doing first email servers originally for myself, and then I presented email server to my company, I can run email server for company, whatever. And they said, okay, interesting, but there is no job, blah blah blah. So then they created kind of IT department, I would say, and all of these things. I mean, internet was a thing at this moment. And I was actually involved in something that is called reverse channel, which if you just do broadcast for cable TV, is just broadcasting is one way. But if you offer internet over the same network, you have to calculate everything backwards to make sure that all decibels and everything are good. So we started offering this. Internet started booming in Poland, and I applied for IT job, but I was refused.
Uh-oh.
My director at the time was like, no. Do you know how expensive these computers are? It's like, I can imagine. So I was like, it's actually a good story for people who listen. Like, I'm actually grateful for this person because not very long time after I quit and actually applied for IT role in hospital. And at some point I was actually head of IT department in this hospital. But I could only do it because I quit and because this person rejected me for some internally created role. So that's how I get to IT. And then I was working as an administrator of various systems and moving slowly towards networking because Linux almost equals network.
Right.
And usually people who are good at Linux used to do also networking.
Right.
And it was time when there was like one-man band, like you have to do everything.
Everything, yeah. Yeah, so it looks like the constraint there gave you opportunity in a way.
Yeah, correct. So it's like at the time, it's obviously, you reject it. You're very young. I was in my 20s. And then you feel pain.
Yeah.
But when you reflect on it, it's always some good in everything.
Yeah.
And I'm actually grateful because it was one of these defining moments was like, okay, I can try. I wasn't like trained or I had no formal training. I was just self-taught and I said, yeah, let's try. Once again, I would like to stress, even when other people don't believe in you, you should always be your own advocate and do what's best for you. And another story and another lesson. And that story still gives me goosebumps. Working in IT could be very challenging at the times, but it's also rewarding. Well, listen to the story about going well beyond what's in your job spec. One thing relatively early in my career that is like I remember till this day is actually kind of interesting story. When I mentioned, I get to IT job and then I moved because I was rejected. So I started working for a big hospital and I was doing everything there. To be honest, from the beginning, it's usual IT. Like you started with customer support. I mean, It was pretty much the same, just for my users were like, medical staff. It was big hospital, actually, 1,000 computers installed. So it was a lot of stuff to do. It was quite of a team. And then at some point, my boss decided to move to other country and I see an opportunity. So I stepped up and said, okay, I can maybe run IT there. And let's see, I was still super young and everything. And it was busy. We were installing a lot of computers. It was good times because we had some grant from government. That's always good to work for public sector. When you secure grant, you have a lot of money and you have to spend this money. So I was installing tons of computers, and then I had a call. I was basically in my office or something, and I had a call from a lot of people chasing me with their computers and everything. So I thought it's another call like this. And I pick up, and obviously there was a lady who was like a principal nurse from one of the pavilions. And she said, hey, is it IT? I said, yes, of course it's IT. And, I knew this person. So I was proactively trying to like, hey, your computers are coming. We have delays. Don't worry, blah, 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 blah. And he said, no, I'm not calling about computers. It's like, oh, right. So what is this? I think we have a bomb. It's like, wow. What? That's IT department. It's not like a supper squad or something.
Right.
And well, I didn't know what to do, but I never seen bomb. And, clearly, I mean, we're joking, but this person was stressed and didn't know what to do. So I decided, okay, let me take a look, whatever. I mean,
IT to the rescue. Right there.
Yes, exactly. And I should mention, like, it wasn't just IT. Like, we had like a CCTV, we had alarms, everything. So basically everything electronic related was IT because we knew
how to
fix everything, right?
Yeah.
So, normally people call us with any issues. So this person called us because we apparently know everything. So I went there. It wasn't bomb, it was fake, but we needed to call police. And obviously police came, they called straight away. It was quite good fake. So it had the box of matches wrapped up with some black like duct tape. And then there was this Casio watch with calculator.
Yeah.
So it was this in front somehow, mounted there with obviously, wires and whatever. So it looked professionally, I would say, to my knowledge of bombs. But even regular police, they called specially in it. And then, it's a good story, but there is a moral there because this person came to me and thanked me that I pick up the phone, and we basically both decided we need to call director of the hospital and police and everything because she didn't know what to do.
Right.
So another lesson for our listeners, like even if the ask is out of your scope, it's still good to just talk to people and treat your users as people.
Right.
Because sometimes it's you never know how you can help. Even
Absolutely.
Just good words or something that redirecting them to right people.
Right.
It's also helpful. And this brings me to the final story about leadership and how I get into the role where I can serve other people to believe in themselves. Let's jump a little bit because obviously we grow with our roles and switching from company to company. But at some point we get interested in leadership. And for me, it was kind of one of these defining moments, if you like. It was probably more than 10 years ago. It was before acquisition. Because my company that I used to work got acquired by the company that we both work for now. And I was kind of having like a crisis, maybe. I already migrated to UK. It was a few years. And then I didn't know what to do. Go back to Poland or stay here, change job, maybe not. I was a little bit burned off. And I decided to go to Poland for just weekend. And there was some workshop about like building local communities, something like this. I was involved in some organization here in UK, in London, around communities, basically like how to build communities. So I thought maybe it will be good. And then one of the book that they recommended was a book called Heroic Leadership. The book is fantastic. We will put some links in our show notes. But it's all about like everyone is a leader and everyone could be a leader and everyone has potential to be a leader. And you just need to find it deep in you. And this book, there's a few books that I read so quickly. I'm not really into reading books, especially paper books. Nowadays I listen.
Right.
But it was right book in right time. And then after reading this book, I decided, okay, maybe there is some other chance here. And I decided, okay, I'll be leader for myself first. Like I never thought about like my self-development or anything like this before. I was just following what was the trends, or I was lucky because, I got into IT. IT was quite hot topic and very popular. So I was in the midst of very interesting field to work and, surrounded by people. But at some point I get burned with no real plan for myself. But after reading this book and pondering a little bit on myself, I said, okay, I should probably start developing myself first. And then I started doing it. And then I noticed that if you start doing it, some people may be more interested in what you're doing and maybe start following you. And I get initially, not very consciously, but I was kind of assuming the role of a leader.
Right.
Because my manager at the time was in USA. So I had very, very limited overlap with her. So I was just doing my job and self-developing myself, not even knowing I becoming a leader.
Right.
And then at some point I started naming it like, okay, maybe I am leader. Maybe I want to, I can aspire to be team lead, tech lead,
Right.
and then finally manager. So that was my kind of path into leadership. It was just one book, and it all started with self-reflection and self-awareness, like where I am in my life, with everything that I do, where I want to be. I never thought about it before, but it was basically leading myself first. And this story concludes this very first episode of my new podcast, The Coffee Journeys Show. Notes, books, and all links I mentioned in this episode can be found at coffeejourneys.blog/1, like first episode, like episode number 1. Let me know what do you think about this episode and perhaps what topic would be interesting for you. You can find all my social media links and email on bio.link/PiotrZ. That's bio.link/PIOTRZ. And this is all I have for you today. I value feedback a lot. That's why I ask you to review my podcast in your favorite podcasting platform and give it as many stars as you think it deserves. By doing so, this podcast is going to be more visible and I can reach more people to provide value. And before you go, if you would like to join the community of people who are determined to help each other and grow together, join my newsletter at coffeejourneys.blog/newsletter. Thanks for tuning in today, and until next time, have a great